Good morning, everybody. Whew, it's a Monday again. Although you may not be watching this on Monday, but welcome back to Just Keep Parenting. Um, this was created to help parents just have little snippets of ideas that they could use daily to speak the language of children. Most of the time we speak the language of adults, and children don't do that yet. As we've been quarantined, it's kind of morphed into what can we do with these little children, right? So this is obviously for parents of young children, although many of the ideas can be used or supplemented or just tweaked a little bit for other children too. So today's Monday, and so what I'd like to do today is give you a week-long idea a day for this week. So today's idea is to press flowers. There's been lots of flowers that we've seen with our spring weather. I know my pansies are just beautiful, and the tulips and the hyacinths are out. So press flowers, put the flowery part into a big thick book and label their names in parts. So the petals, the leaves, the stems, any of those parts, have them label them and then put that into a book so that they can dry it. So that'd be one idea. The second idea could be a poster of summer safety tips, right? Or quarantine safety tips. But something that they could do that is out of the ordinary, not just on regular paper, but maybe if you've got some poster board paper, or you've got some of that paper that's long, like bulletin board paper, any of that, something that is another writing activity, right? Because sometimes just pulling out regular old 8.5 by 11 papers is not engaging for them at some point. So if they can have different ways of writing, right? So poster board, big pieces of paper, where they could just talk about, you could have a great conversation with them about safety tips, whether it's summer safety tips, whether it's bike safety, whether it's quarantine safety, right? So use your child and the situation that you've been presented with to see what kind of safety tips might be helpful to you and your child. The third thing you could do this week is to count the number of steps it takes to walk to the corner of your house. Now, if you're on a corner house, that's not going to work very well. But if you walk to the other corner, or depending on your child's ability, your counting ability, you could count the whole way across the block. I know there's a range of abilities that we have represented with 4 and 5-year-old children. And so think about your child, their individual abilities, right? We talk a lot in the previous videos about that zone of proximal development, right? So Vygotsky talks a lot about where that zone is for your child. So even though we've got children here that are doing about the same thing depending on their age, we also have that zone of proximal development where we want to push them into that zone, but if we push them too far, boom, their learning stops, right? They need to be 80% successful in order to keep on going. And so we want to make sure that we're in that zone, but if we push too much, then they turn off. So it's kind of a fine line to figure out where that is. So think about your child's zone of proximal development when it comes to counting and what might be just far enough in that zone. We call it the ZPD, zone of proximal development. Okay, so that's another idea. The fourth idea is to make a pattern necklace using some type of cereal that you have. Fruit Loops is the go-to for that, right? Because there are circles and you can string through them and they're different colors. You can also add Cheerios to that. You could count if you don't have very many Fruit Loops, or you've got beads or any of those types of things, right? It doesn't need to be cereal, but something that they can string with. If you've got any boondoggle, which is that plastic looking string, you can use that. If you've got yarn, you can use that. And a nice thing to do is, if you're preparing for this, you can dip the yarn in Elmer's white glue, and then the next day it's got an edge that won't fray. You can also wrap a little white tape. Not masking, but the other kind of tape. You can wrap that around the edge, although the glue is better. It gives a little bit more of a finished edge to it than the tape does. So any of those types of ideas so that they can work on their patterning skills, work on their color recognition skills, and work on their counting skills. And also their smell motor. And then the last idea for this week is to hang large sheets of newsprint or butcher paper on a wall and be an artist today, right? Most of the time we are sitting at a table and we write this way, right? But it's a whole different experience to take that up to a wall and have them paint, have them be some sort of an artist up on a wall. So you'll see in the classrooms, we do a lot of art down on the table, but we also bring it up on easels and let them be an artist that way because the perspective is different for them. So if you've got, and if you don't have large paper, then put a lot of 8.5 by 11 sheets together and tape it up and let them go with that. You can do this outside. Obviously you can do it inside if we have that chat about this is the wall, this is the paper, and help them to see the boundaries that are there. But there's 5 ideas that hopefully you can use today that maybe some of them you haven't thought about using with your children at this point. But keep on quarantining, everybody. And thanks for listening. Go sign up for, subscribe at Just Keep Parenting, and we'll see you again.